Hello, Bethel Community Church. This is Pastor Nathan with our Monday devotion. Today we're going to be in the 4th chapter of the book of Ruth. It's the last chapter in this short little book. I love the book of Ruth, as I've said before. It shows God's loyal love. It lived out by people who follow Him, and follow Him in a time that's difficult, follow Him in a time that's not easy. And I think there's a lot we can learn from Ruth and Boaz's example. So we're going to start in verse 1 of chapter 4 and go through verse 10. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat down there just as the guardian redeemer he had mentioned came along. Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here." And they did so. Then he said to the guardian redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling a piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of the seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line." "I will redeem it," he said. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." At this, the guardian redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. Kind of an interesting process there. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself," and he removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses, but I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are witnesses." So we get both a kind of a cool legal case, which results in a transfer of a shoe, which I think is just a fun, unique way to show that the transaction is complete, to hand the other person your shoe. And you also see Boaz follows through on his promise to Ruth. He does things the right way. He honors God's law in talking to the closest redeemer, and he kind of sets up the situation to make it so that no matter what happens, Ruth and Naomi are taken well care of. And one thing that my thought of this whole book, when you look at the book of Ruth, is redemption. We get the term kinsman redeemer in here, and specifically in redeeming the line and the property and the family lineage. And that's the context here. But when you look at Naomi in chapter 1, she's depressed and calls herself Mara, bitter, rather than Naomi. And at the end, she's with joy and has been redeemed. And it's not just physical provision. It's not just having a descendant and security. It's emotional, it's spiritual. Like her attitude towards God and everything has changed and gone back. She's been redeemed completely. And my thought for all of us is just in going through the book of Ruth is, one, as I've said all the way through, is let's think about how to love loyally. Let's think about how to follow God well in times that are difficult, when it's not easy. And that can be true personally at any time in life. Tragedy befalls all the time. So love well and follow God well. And then the other one is thinking about who can be redeemed. Jesus is the great Redeemer. He's from the line of Boaz and Ruth, and as it's the line of King David, and he can redeem anyone. And do we realize that? Do we believe that the person who has been abused and mistreated and feels unworthy, someone who's lost everything like Naomi and is depressed, someone who's been even the abuser and the oppressor and evil, like Paul, do we believe truly that any person can be redeemed? Any person can bring glory to God and find joy and peace and salvation in Him. Whether it's the homeless guy on the corner, your neighbor, your son or daughter, or yourself. It's just something to think about as we looked at a story of physical redemption and Naomi's story and Ruth and Boaz's story. Just something to think about as us who've been redeemed, and how can we live that out with others. So I love you all. Have a fantastic week, and God bless.